provided by UAS, which means it's up here in the bus stop at 5:30.
Okay. 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 Just curious, Johan, who are online, yeah, what do you guys see in the middle on the big part of your screen? That's a team. Okay, you can. Because I see you, so I was just curious. Not that I think people shouldn't see you, but I was just wondering what the thing is. Usually I probably don't see myself, so I'm not freaking out. Okay. Yokecha. So let's go around the room. Everybody say one thing. This is our Tuesday thing. And who wants to go first?
I could go. See you, Dr. Wilson. What I got?
You okay? Yeah, what? Yeah, what? Identify. Adusa.
Okay, Oxytini.
Sheesh. Identify Adusa. Oh, okay. Yan. Tiyanaka.
I respect you.
Oh, yeah, away. Yeah, away. It's cheese. You got caught, do so. Huh? You go ahead, one. That caught, do so.
Plus, Yaki cut this plane.
Oh.
Sudan Rusitan.
Oh.
Two.
Yeah, away. Yeah, away. Okay. Okay, good cheese. You got caught, do so.
Stuka Haditi, Kirne, do Yekine, Duck, and Hataku.
Okay. Hatsa. Cheese. Tadachnach Archeati, what Naskinach, into I guess it could. You want to say anything? Okay. What do you guys have? Oh, yeah, away. Yeah, away.
I have a hard time warming up now because I don't like my father. I have to like fight through that for an hour.
Yeah. Well, you can have an unlikable father, but you can still have your father's people.
Yeah, I love that. I just don't like my father. I love my brothers.
Okay. Okay.
Tlingit to Ashtu.
You okay? Okay. Gwash Chechutan Wecha Hatman Chechutan Wecha. Johan online Ku'u Ichtidei Ku'u Yitkoha. Chasaki to us a gugug. Who wants to go first online?
This is like
Okay, I'll just go in the order that I see on this side. So let's say Auktatzin to say anything.
Eltoisigu Like has 12 skook achtatani.
Ja'ana way, chidatan, yake and cheese. Idet ka'a, anahook, eat kwa haguk. I think you're muted. Let me unmute you. Tashi toashkoke, usatini.
Go without me.
Okay, we heard that part. Okay, good. That's Aji, eat kwa.
Yeah, nak swing Tlingit.
Okay, gonna cheese. Oops. Let's see. Who do I got here? Chukan. Eat koha gwas yi eat koha.
Kunach sa uri khwatliaya gi.
Gwai khwan. Ka khayakhi Tlingit yu khatangi koha. Okay. Shakte u eat koha guk.
Yek satini. Kunach atcha hajies yayagi.
Ha, okay, eat lachait. Akhach to a sakutsu. Gonna cheese. Tanai eat koha guk.
Shke kashhit ka Tlingit yu khatangi shtu khashtu.
Yake, yach to a saku kadin kay shahiti. Yake, oh, chakta ugug, chakuta iju, khankayati.
Ach yak away, ach hit at ek.
Yake ha, gulchi shain kayinigi. Yanishtuka eat koha gug. Ayati hishta sakwa ach. Yidat koach wasakin. Cha. Kate, Naskawe, Kahwe, Iju, Gushkadinka, Tikana. We're just saying one thing, anything. Go. Okay, gonna cheese. Cheese, Kuhastsukuk. Yeah, away, ye had to wash because whenever you it's really interesting. Like, Tlingit is just like, it's so fun because it's so OCD. So is to cut a person. So you chash everything else. But you might like if you were to like go and like if you were in a street fight with like a kangaroo and then you stab him for whatever reason, that might be a kep. I'd have to ask some of the folks, but then the shwudde is like to myself. Because so you'd say shwudde, I cut myself. Yeah, with Facebook satin. Ha. One. Just to cut you on. Any questions? I got a couple of things we're going to do to kind of get warmed up, and then we're going to do some hardcore grammar stuff, and then we're going to just talk about weather. Unless anybody's got a question. Any questions? Okay.
Purple.
Kana tahini yakhyati. Oh, Shakta'u ha'in kanani Yikaya kajait tut yish. Oh, yike yish. Abach tuasaku chotu. Oops. Let me get my screens all ready. So let me put that over there because it's fun. Let me look up that verb real quick, and then tonight you can sit on your question for a second. So let me share my screen because we got a bunch of stuff we're going to pile up here. I got to make sure I still got the chat room going. Okay. So let's see. So she says yeesh. So we're going to take a look and find this verb. So in the verb dictionary, we'll start here. And so here is yeesh, which is to pull something or to open. So this is something that you get for like pulling up roots, to open a sliding door. So that could be it. And so whenever we have Tlingit and we sort of take guesses on things, it's always interesting because yeesh could be for something to pull and possibly to push something, but it's kind of light or it moves on a track kind of. And so with Tlingit, it's really fun because you just never know. But then once you get it, you should be trying to sort of, I mean, you can always hit the overload point, but you're always trying to sort of internalize this stuff. You say, okay, well, there's a new verb. I want to get that verb, right? And so these are some things that we can sort of look at. That's really interesting. The toot part has to do with probably being inside. So here's another kind of trivia question, and we haven't done these really yet. But like, so we started to do a couple of these things like towards and from, and then there's another one like khan, which means to be near, usually a person. So you could say Heshtasa akhan ti, Heshtasa akhan uti. Nobody's by me, right? But then you could say kla khandek kwagut. I'm going to go see my mother. I came from being, and it's to be near, but it also translates a lot of times to like visiting. And so there's a few of these things we're going to pick up, like around or under or on top of. In English, we call them prepositions. In Tlingit, we call them postpositions. Because you'd say, in English, you'd say on the table, but in Tlingit, you'd say table on. Nadak kawu with gukha. And then what you'll find is on the ka part, which is on, they can take suffixes. And those suffixes kind of say how it's there. Is it just there? Is it moving there? Is it, doing some other things? Has it arrived there? Yish, put it back, right? Push it back or pull it back. Okay, cheesh. And then, so then to be around, has anybody heard how to be around the table? So this is another kind of fun one for Tlingit. Because you might think like, so ka would be on the table, tayi would be under the table. To be at the table would be this cool one that we call yach. There was a yach, 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 and yach. How are we going to spell yach? Yeah, Y-A-A-X underline. And so that is to be around the edge of something, to be at the edge of something. And there's a similar one, which is which is to be at the shore of a lake or a river. And then something we'll learn later too is that the shore of the ocean is different than everything else. That's niche. There's no niche at the lake or the river. There's chayach. And it's a really interesting sort of thing thinking about Tlingit worldview and stuff. Okay, Tana, Dasa. How do you decide what classifier letter to use? 0, S, L, or SH. You go minus D plus D, minus I plus I. But when you use different letters, okay, that's a good question. So the way to sort of start answering this question is probably to look at. So when does the classifier change? So we're going to go to a verb root T, which has a whole mess of verbs to it. T, right? So the verb itself means to be, right? To be. And so when you see yati, that means to be, like to, you know, for example, they might say, if someone said to me, hey, you were kind of crazy last night, I might say, that's how I was, right? I was that way. But then you can change it to S group, and now you're saying, I am not just being, but I am being a member of this group. So what the classifier tends to do, I guess what I should do is pull up my handy classifier chart. And when we kind of keep looking at verbs, my suggestion on how to start thinking about the classifier is to start saying, just notice which classifier it is. Which group is it in? And these are some things that we could do. Let's see. Talking and browsing is like, so we got these kind of 4 groups, 0, S, L, SH. What they kind of do is 0 is just, the verb is just happening, right? Most verbs, the 0 group has the most verbs. And if you change that classifier, you're changing the verb. Now it's a different verb. So when you go to S or L, there's usually a couple of reasons why it would switch to that. One is you're just saying there's some specific thing going on here. You're either saying it's this specific type of thing, like I'm not just being, I'm being a member of the group, right? So I could say, I'm being like this, I'm being like that. But that's a different thing than saying, I'm a teacher, I'm shukach adi, I'm Tlingit. So whenever you say, I am one of those things, then that's switching the classifier. The other time they switch is when somebody is making that specific verb happen, right? For example, seeing something is different than watching something, right? Because when you see something, it kind of comes into your view. But if you're watching something, you know, maybe you're a stalker, or maybe, you know, you're the guard, right? Or maybe you're taking care of it. So when we say chatin, like you say, adatke chatin, I see kids. I just see them, they're here. You're not saying anything other than that. You could say, ach yetke chasatin, I see my kids, because those are specifically yours. Then you could say, adatke chasatin, I'm taking care of these kids. I am watching them. Right, and so that's what the classifier does. And then there's this weird kind of SH group, which is just, there's not very many verbs that are, and we haven't really figured it out, but it seems to be there's some verbs where it's like, they're kind of unpleasant things to do. Like for example, a lot of times when we say yak-a, which is good, the negative form is actually a totally different verb, which is tesh-ush-ke. So it has jumped to a different classifier group. So that doesn't really just mean not good, it means terrible. Okay, and we're gonna keep, don't worry if it's not, you know, we get these charts, we get this other stuff, but for now, I would say whenever you see a verb, just look at that classifier, and we'll look at some more. We're gonna look at these weather verbs, We're going to look at how they work. We're going to look at, there's these two different qualities, plus D, minus D, plus I, minus I, and we'll talk about what that stuff even means. But just remember, Tlingit takes care of a whole bunch of stuff inside of a verb. A whole bunch of stuff is packed in there. And we'll look at some of those things. But for now, and I guess I'll show you. Like I thought, wouldn't this be fun to take all the different potential parts of a Tlingit verb and make them look like little toy blocks? So you can see in your brain that you're just playing with little blocks. These are all the sort of potential things that could be in a verb. There's a lot. Usually you're not going to get this many. You have to have the classifier and the root. You have to have them. The rest, they just might be there. And so we'll talk about why they would be there. Some of them, when they get in there, you've created a new verb. So for example, chash, awachash, he or she cut it. A kawachash, he or she cut it into little pieces. They're just a little bit different.
Is there any verb with 18 parts?
The verb with the most parts that I know of it's really long, and so some of them they could be there and they're just there to put the verb into a different mode. They really just put the verb into this different mode, sort of like the ed on an English verb or the s on an English verb. So it's under shake. There might be longer verbs out there, but this is the longest verb that I know of. So this would be he shook his finger at me. So the way it could get really long is if you were going to say he or she is going to shake his or her finger at me, which would be no. There it is. So that was pretty long. But as far as what those other parts could be, we'll take a look at that. But just to get us away from grammar for a little bit, let's just look at this stuff. Everybody just repeat after me. Yak'e-ich-satini. 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 Wa'e-akwa. Wa'e-akwa. Somebody translate the top one for me. It's good to see you. Somebody translate the bottom one for me.
And you?
Is that you, right? Is that you? Which is fun because if you go to the Alaska Native Medical Center in Anchorage, and they got the sign that says, this sign says hello in 20 different Alaska Native languages. And then Tlingit it says, which is kind of, you could say that works as a hello, but it's really kind of usually like teasing kind of a thing. Like, is that you? Right?
So the good to see you, how would you say, like if you're, like when I was walking past you and Robin the other day, I said that, but then that was only acknowledging you.
Ah.
And if I wanted to acknowledge both you and Robin.
Okay, who wants to take a shot at that? To say, not good to see you, good to see you all. Oh, way. So what we would do, whoops, I guess we would make this really kind of blurry. So what would happen, so this is the object, right? So if we look at what we've got cha, and then we've got a perfective marker, and then we've got a classifier that goes sa. So our brain should be able to see, oh, there's the object. That's the one that's being seen. So it goes from I to yi.
And that cha means that I.
And then this goes back the same way it was, right? So this goes to yi, and it separates itself. And whenever we look at, when we write those object pronouns, if there's a hyphen, that means it attaches to the verb. Otherwise, it gets written as its own word. And even though it's written as its own word, it's still, if whatever comes before the verb ends with the vowel, it will push it into contraction mode. So whenever we see the root here is teen. When we see things to the left of that, when we go one thing is sa, which is the classifier. The second thing is y, or actually the second thing going that way is cha, which is the subject. Then y, which is the perfective marker. Then ye is the fourth thing, which is the object. If there are things in there, and if there's 3 or more, there's going to be, they have to contract. They have to start collapsing. And there's kind of rules, like the cha is very likely to contract. The perfective marker is very likely to contract. So basically, this is your Tlingit math. Ye plus cha, or ye plus yu plus cha plus sa, and you get yochsa. Okay? There is a yak'e yochsatini. Yak'e yochsatini. Yak'e yochsatini. Okay, so there, that's how it works, right? And so there'll be other things that we can start to figure out how to do from here. So for example, if we just sort of, if we just duplicate this, and then we get rid of that, and we get rid of that, and we get rid of that, and we get rid of that. So taking the yak-a part off kind of simplifies things. That changes back to an I. And so this is how you say, I see all of y'all, right? Yuchsatin, right? And so this might be something like, let's say you have kids and they're up to some shenanigans. You might say over the loudspeaker, Yuchsatin. I see you. I see you. I see what you're doing. So, how do we say Yuchsatin? Oops.
You said it.
Well, we say it just like that. Okay, sorry. I read something that I was like, okay, man, let me think about that. Okay. Do perfective markers tell you the verb has been done or not? Okay. So what the perfective marker does is it just says, we are looking at this verb and we are just going to say, has it happened or not? That's the single way we're going to look at the verb. Because you can have a perfective marker and it could not have happened, right? So, and we'll look at that in a second. So now we've got, I see you, I see y'all. How about I see him or her? Any takers?
Could just be Sutini.
So the I is not going to be on the end because the yak-a, so there's going to be satin, not auxatin, not isatin. So what we've got to have is we're going to have the 0 for the she, he, or her, him, or it. Then we're going to have the perfective marker. Then we're going to have me as the subject. And then satin won't change. But when these things add up together, they get a little bit funky. So we should get huasatin. Okay, so that is going to be how you say, I see him or her, right? Huasatin. 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 I see them. How are we going to say that? Has-huasatin. So that's the verb itself is not, that part's not going to change with the prefix and stuff. You throw the hus on there. And it gets a little tricky once we start changing things a whole bunch. But I just want us to just sort of see this. There's the object out there, it, ye. And you don't really say like, I see us. You could say that. It's kind of a weird context. I guess if we're walking by a mirror or like we're watching a screen and there we are, you know. And you could say, I see myself, but that gets a little funky and we're not going to do Okay. Everybody repeat after me. Wasa iati. Wasa iati. Wasa iati. Wasa iati. Dasaway tleka khinach.
How are you feeling?
How are you? Right? So how are you? How are you doing? How is your being? How you be? Right? How's it? So there we go. So there's the verb. The I is the you. So if I were to say, how are y'all? How would I say that?
Wasa
yeti. How are they? Wasa hasyati. How is he or she or it? Wasa yeti, right? Wasa, how is it? Right? Wasa yeti ya ku'ir. How is the ku'ir? Maybe I'll text you the message, right? It's happening right now. How is this thing that's right now? So we went over this. I'm going to skip past this. Okay, let's all repeat this top one. Dasa ituwasagu. Dasa ituwasagu. How do we translate that one? What do you want? Hin achtuwasagu. Dana achtuwasagu. Atcha achtuwasagu. Atchishi achtuwasagu. So, so then, oops, that should be I want. Right. So these and this, it's not a question mark. Okay. So good, there's some phrases. So we can see the ituwasagu. This one's a little different. So we see the I switches to the ach, right? So achtuwasagu, ituwasagu, hatuwasagu, yituwasagu, dutuwasagu, husdutuwasagu. So this is where sometimes we get a little bit confused when we see the hus versus the husdu, because this has to do with the tuwa, with the being inside of the self, right? Achtuwasagu, etuwasagu. Okay. Daqasach an yachyati. Daqasach an yachyati. Let me translate that one. It's red.
What color? What for?
Not what for, not what color. Which one? Which one is red, right? For whatever reason, like I don't know why. That's how you say it. So here's the Khan Yachyati. So how would I say which one is blue? Right, so then you get a whole bunch, you get all these colors, and these are just like, if you want to do a little sort of games, practice with each other. Ketluku is a really bright yellow. Ketluku. That's dog pee yellow. That is a Tlingit color. I'm not teaching any bad words.
How would you describe an eagle beak?
Chakshu. And that's a
Even like
orangish yellow.
Describing it as a color.
Yeah, that's a color. And so there's this poster. We'll look at a poster that has a whole bunch of colors that Yarovara researched for us. Chakshu would be kind of an orangish yellow. Kak is that little yellow warbler, and so it's kind of a brighter yellow. But then Kekshoku is a little bit more sort of like kind of neon, I guess. Yes, which one is color red? Aduchsa wucha. Aduchsa wucha. Translate that one.
Try who's there.
Not quite who's there, but there's the who part in there. And with the CH, that means who did the verb, right? Whenever you get the adooch instead of ado, because you could say, adu sa itla, who's your mother? Adu sa, weidu, who's that over there? But for this one, aduch sa wucha, so you're asking who did the wuchaim? And wucha, anyone?
Past tense.
It is the past tense, it's perfect, well, it's perfective, yeah. Who ate it, right? So if I walked in, if I had like this big, delicious cinnamon roll, and I walked out for a second, I came back and it was gone, right? As I prepare for the big battle. Right, so who ate it, right? And so this is something we call an ergative suffix. Not all languages have them, but a bunch of them do. And it just marks who did it. It's not used all the time, but as you read stories and stuff, and you see if they're saying like yeich or kusach quanch, that CH is saying they're the ones who did whatever the verb is. Right? And then wucha, there's the verb. Okay, I think it's the last one. Gudesa yanikuch. Gudesa yanikuch. That's the way.
Where are you?
Where are you? Yeah, where are you cooking? And how are you, when you cook, how are you going? Not on foot. That would be good desa yani good. A lot of you probably cooked here. Yeah, so that's driving or going by boat. You might have taken a boat here. I don't know how you would have taken care of the rest. So where are you going by boat? So then we see here, gu and then de would be towards. Sa, ya, ni, kuch, right? You are going. And we'll look at what that verb is a little later. So I thought we'd do this sort of exercise here.
That's the same cook that's on the sign.
Mm-hmm. Which sign?
The US sign.
Oh, no, that one's
that's
kach. So kach, yeah, it's a little bit different. So this one is the verb root, kuch or kuch, which means to go by boat or car. Kach is a little bit different. Okay, so everybody's got something to write with, and maybe a piece of paper. We've been like cramming all this sort of verb stuff, so I wanted to take a break, go back to names of things. So this is what I'd like to do. Going by bike. Somebody asked, how do you go by bicycle? So let me put that up there. Oops. So we'll look here under Carrie's Chagi Shawa's work. And I'm just going to jump there because I know what it is. But the verb root for going by a bike is to kick. Sech. And I don't know if she has it actually. So yeah, I don't think it's there. Okay. Well, there goes that. So let me go back to the verb dictionary. And we're going to enter bike. We'll do a search for bike. No, this is a long time ago. So I think you used to bicycle. So, achkanachech. So it's, so that would be, so there you would say, gudesa, gudesa. Yashkinitech. Where are you kicking yourself around to? Right. So the verb literally means to kick yourself. Right. For someone to kick his or herself. Okay. So going back to thinking about nouns. What I'd like us to do is just look at it for a second, and I'll say dasaya, and you don't have to say awe. All you have to say now is the name of this thing. And then what I'd like us to do is to write it once we've heard it. And then we'll look at the name and we'll see how our spelling is coming along. Right? It's not a test. We're just sort of hanging out, trying to remember these things. Okay, so here's the first one. Dasaya. Dasaway.
Are we working now?
Yep.
Okay.
As ye away we testis chabut testis chadau khasa ko ya do we yatatin khnakhwe I guess that's not a great picture of it. Kukhyakheti. I don't want to say the word for what's around it because that's its name. Kukhyakheti on aya shoot out the aknuch. Yeah, online you could type it or you could speak it if you know it. This is the first one in the set of nouns in the beginning Tlingit workbook. Dasa wait like kach enach yisekukya. Dasa? Ye awa at dayi ye anaka at dayi at dayi at dayi. Kaishikit. Good. Write it down. Give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds. Yadu at dayi. Kun letters away. Clay. Dech. Nusk. Da kun. Kajin. Clay dushu. Dach koa. Way. Words. At is something, some things. Dayi is bark. So the word literally means the bark of something, right? And like, no dog bark, but like the tree bark. Dasaway.
Dasaway.
Yeah, a weapon is cheese. Kaishakit, Johan, Kaishakit. Oh, tuss. 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 Kaishakit, Kaishakit. Here we go. Nuskia. But remember, like Tlingit it's a phonetic alphabet. One letter, one sound. So as we sort of hear these, this is a good thing to just sort of think about. And as you share words with people, when they say, hey, what's the word for this? And you tell them, and they say, oh, can you write it phonetically? Just say, I just did, because Tlingit's a phonetic alphabet, right? Sometimes people will say that. Like, you know, you might say, dakka. And they'll say, can you write it phonetically? And like, I think, do you want me to write like D-U-C-K, like duck? Yeah, I'm not really sure. Okay. Oh, plum. Dasaway. Shawat. 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 Kaishakit. Kaishakit. Everybody should be writing it down. How much to take? Yeah, do Shawat. Shawat. So you hear that long and low, short and high, right? Kun letters so way. Plague, Dech, Nusk, Dakun, Kajin, right? So the SH is one letter, the double A is one letter. Okay, okay. Isitingayata. Dasaway. Yeah, wait. Heen is heen, but we're looking at kind of the lake. Kaishikit. Yeah, Kun letters. Kun letters away. Kun letters away. Plague. Plague. That is one letter. Is a one-letter word. And so these are the things we've got to just keep thinking about. The reason I want to push this is because we're doing this one sound, one symbol thing. That way, as you hear people speak, you're going to get better at writing this. And as you see Tlingit, you can get better at reading it. Now, there's two characters here, but we're concerned about letters. Yadu. And this is a little bit, like this is kind of, and I'll explain it later, but to go that way, kind of on a compass, I guess.
Ichde.
Yeah, well. Ichte. 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 Oops, I think I had key on there. Sorry. I should know because that says not key. But we got to talk about this because I use this compass thing, and the more I think about it, I think maybe that's not the best. But if I were to say, if you were to use a compass kind of from a Tlingit perspective, na ki does mean northward, but the true origin of that word means upstream. Ich-ki means downstream. So you could say ichte would be southward, to head southward or to head downstream. So dak is how you would go west, and it means out to sea. Dak is how you'd go east, and it means to the inland, right? But it gets a little, it's not like fixed points. It's not how the Tlingit sense of direction works. Yahweh, te, kaishachit. Letters. Yeah. Okay, let's do a couple more. Das away. Sate. Yeah, sate. Kaishachit. With you guys online, you should, when I say kaishachit, now you gotta write it yourself, or else everyone's gonna read what you wrote and then give away my answers. You gotta do okay. Saved, right? Kun letters away. Nusk, get away. So this is also helping us to see those vowels, right? Okay, so when we see the trees, they're specific. Like we say, os isn't the answer for any of the trees in this exercise. It's not acceptable. It's been banished from the board. Dasaya. It is os, but it is a certain type.
Shayi.
Ye'aweh. Shayi. 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 Kaishachit.
Can you say that again?
Shayi. Shayi. And every time you guys see these, you should just say its name. It's got such good medicine all over it. All over.
missed the high tone, but I got it.
Shaggy,
Oh.
right? So these are some other, sometimes you're gonna hear people say shaggy. So if you wrote it with 2 E's on the end, that's not incorrect. Sometimes those vowels at the end, they can go long. And in some cases, they're totally interchangeable, right? De and day. So, let us away. Plague, de, dong, yake, goodness, sheesh. Okay, we'll keep doing this. We'll do this with every noun that we've gone over so far. That's my goal, is to sort of supplement the grammar crunching and stuff with this. But back to the grammar crunching. This was a fun thing for me to do. I like Star Wars. But then I had to change, right? I made this little thing a couple years ago. But then it's like, if you're going to say to be or not to be, I'm like, what do you mean? Like to exist? That's a different verb in Tlingit. For something to be some certain way? Tell me, Hamlet, what's going on in your crazy brain? Right? So then I picked the one to exist. And then I actually wrote this wrong. So that yay should be low tone. It shouldn't be a high tone. Ye cook posti. Gosh kesh ye cook posti. That one's high. That one's fine. Ye away khadu wawusk. You khadu wawusk. So to exist, maybe not to exist, that is what people are asking. Just sort of how do you translate Shakespeare even? That's kind of a fun thing. But anyways, point is when we look at positive and negative forms of verbs, we're going to start looking at what goes into a verb when it begins changing. It is very predictable, but there are a lot of moving parts. So we'll start looking at some examples. And then what I would say, if you want to just sort of start moving into this territory, just start picking some verbs that you want to know how to use. And then start using positive and negative forms of perfective, imperfective, future, and maybe progressive imperfective, right? And so they're big words, but perfective just means we are talking about whether or not the verb has happened. It can either say has happened, hasn't happened. Those are the only 2 ways you could say it in the perfective. And that means we have moved usually beyond the event, but that doesn't mean it's a past tense. Because I could say ich satin, and that could mean I see you. But it can also mean I saw you, because all that matters is like the verb has moved into this sort of state of being. Right? Imperfective means it's happening now. That's the way it is right now. But that the verb is not this ongoing thing. The most common for the imperfectives are states. I am good, I am strong, I am tired, I am weak, I am lazy. Right? So I started out okay, but I got an awful lame there. Then the future is just saying it's going to or it's not going to. Progressive imperfective means this is your ing in English. It is in the process of happening. It's happening right now, and it's this ongoing type of thing. Those are the 4 that you need to know in order to be conversational in Tlingit. If you got these 4, you can speak Tlingit. You can talk about all the things that you really need to talk about. If you want to do the big stories and the big speeches, you got to learn some other modes. But this is your starting point. So I would say until you get a pretty good grasp of this, don't try, there's some commands you need to know. Especially, hand me this, sit down, shut up, in some cases. That's, and then there's other things that aren't commands, and we'll look at those that are sort of like, that's enough, shame on you, those types of things. But these are the 4 that will get you to be a communicator in Tlingit. That doesn't mean you're going to understand everything you hear. That doesn't mean you're going to be able to say everything that you want to. And then the question is, how do you know when to use imperfective or progressive imperfective? And it comes down to the type of verb. Okay? And it gets a little tricky But basically, unless it's a state or an act verb, it'll have to be progressive imperfective if we're talking about it right now. State or act, and those ones can be in the imperfective. They're the only two that have an imperfective. Everything else would have to be progressive imperfective. But you'll see in some other verbs like irsatin that there is no, when there's certain verbs that we call, let's just go here first. I gotta get to this slide, and then the next slide actually answers that question. Perfective. Oh, sorry, there was a bit of a lag. Let's go over that again. Perfective. This means we're talking about the verb strictly as basically, has it happened or not? That's the most important thing, right? He paid me my money, he didn't pay me my money, right? To put it in sort of these terms, right? There's no in between. But that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about when it has happened. For example, chwasaku or chwasaku, kai chwasaku. Those are perfective forms. You know it or you don't know it, right? So you just get one of these two options. Doesn't have to do with time. Imperfective means this is how the verb is, right? And so it's happening now, but it's not this ongoing thing. It's there. Usually it has achieved some state. I have become tired. I've become strong, right? And then the future is we're talking about whether or not it's going to happen. And the progressive imperfective means like somebody walking, a wheel turning. It's this thing it's in this state of happening right now. And it's a lot to sort of digest, but you do this stuff in English. You just don't have to think about it. There's a bunch of stuff you do in English that you don't necessarily have to think about yet. And I'll show you an example in a second. But first of all, what kinds of things affect the way a verb conjugates? When we say conjugate, that means the verb changes, and usually right in the prefix. It's usually the place it changes the most. So there's really four things that we're kind of focused on. The first one we call transitivity. And that means, does it have an object? Does it have a subject? That's all transitivity is asking, right? This is the difference between, we won't look at too many examples, but basically, transitive means there's an object and a subject. Somebody does that verb to somebody, right? Object in transitive means there's only an object. So, I could say, Chat yanik, I'm sick. The transitive version, Chat yasanik, you made me sick, you gave me a cold, right? So the subject means there's someone doing it. The object means it's happening to somebody. Subject in transitive means there's only a subject. I walked there, not like I walked you there. That's a little bit different. Impersonal means there's neither a subject or an object. The weather, they're usually impersonal. Nobody made the sun come out. Nobody made it rain. Right? The other thing that affects it is the classifier. We've got these four groups. And what happens is it just changes the shape of what's there. But what the classifier is doing, there's kind of this default. And then we say classification or agency. That means you're trying to create some kind of category. You're not just pulling it, you're pulling it by the handle. You're not just picking it up, you're picking it up by the end of a rope. Those are all like the form of Tlingit classification. Agency means it didn't just happen. Somebody made that happen, right? So for example, I could say, let's say my leg got hurt and I could be talking about it and I could just say, that's what happened to me. But if you were driving a car and you ran that car into my leg and that's why my leg is hurt, I could say, this is what you did to me. So those are different sort of things, right? Uwane, yanhat uwane, I am ready. Yanat uwane, it is ready. Yan at khwasane. I prepared it, right?
So the classifier group is tied to the transitivity state.
A lot of times, right? Not all the time, but that's one reason it might change. And the other reason is we just need a slightly different verb. I see it, I see that specific thing, I'm watching it. And then the SH is usually like some undesirable kind of thing. There's just not very many of those. Okay. So, other things are the verb types. So every verb has, so when you have a verb, it presents all this information to you, and you got to sort of figure out where to put this information into these little categories. An act verb would mean someone does something. An event verb means something happens. A state like this would be he or she cut it, right? That just happened, right? An event verb means something like it exploded. A state verb would be for something to be a certain way. I am good. You are strong. A motion verb is for something to move or to be moved. I picked it up. We're driving there. I'm walking there. And a position verb means for something to be positioned. There's not very many of those. I'm standing here. The building is there, right? And once you sort of see, and you'll see as you start to sort of continue to look at those verb themes and look up verbs, you'll start using this information to process them. Oh, it's that type of verb. Okay, it's that type of verb. Oh, it's that classifier. Okay, there's a subject. Okay, there's an object. The last thing is every verb also has a conjugation type. Right? And Tlingit's so fun. It's just like, okay, you got that? Well, here's some more, right? So this is something that affects a couple different things, and we'll start to see what. But this is also not just a type of verb, but just the whole kind of type of motion or whatever it is. There's things that come to a definite completion. There's things that are just sort of ongoing. Doesn't mean they never end. There's things that go up, there's things that go down. Okay? And there's times where you gotta know which one of these they're all. All of these are shown in the theme itself, right? So if we look at a verb and it shows us some things here, we see, what is this first part? Object. This part is to. This is what we call a thematic prefix. Anybody know what to means when it's in the verb like that? Especially when you see it after the object or it's built into the verb, it always means inside. Inside, right? So you could say, Adat tukhwatan. I thought about it. Adat khwatan. I talked about it. So tuk is inside, kha is like a mouth. Okay. L is showing you L classifier. It's in that L group. On, once you see this, it's showing you where the root is. The verb root. And on means pleasant or gentle or kind. Ga. So this is showing you the conjugation type. It's ga, which has that upward type of thing. Almost all the state verbs are upward type of things. I don't know why. It's just the way they are. It's a state verb, so it shows you what kind of verb that is. It's object intransitive, which is just sort of reinforcing. You should be able to see it right here. We see an O, no S, object intransitive. S, no O, subject intransitive. O and S, transitive. Neither, impersonal. Right? And then this shows you what that generally means, kind, gentle. And then this is the sort of more of the translation. For O, which means object, to be kind. For O, to be gentle. So here's the imperfective. We see tusha'an. So everybody say tusha'an. 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 Somebody tell me how to say, I am kind.
Teach me, teacher.
Right, so there's, now we go back to our little sort of pronoun sheet that we carry everywhere with us, every moment of our lives. Chat, that's me as the object pronoun. We are kind. Ha tusha'an. You are kind. Ye tusha'an. Y'all are kind. Ye tusha'an. He or she is kind.
Tusha'an.
Yahweh, they are kind. Has tusha'an. Okay, so now we see, so this is showing us the stuff, and we got to do a little bit of work. For now, we're going to take our break, and we're going to come back and look at the different parts that are in here once we start changing the verb mode a little bit. And then we'll go back to our weather, where we're just sort of saying things and repeating them. But, we got to start looking under the hood and seeing what's there. And we got to talk to each other about this stuff. Because when we talk about Tlingit grammar, it's important. But the thing of it is the elders, they know this stuff. But they can't always come out and explain it the same way you couldn't explain English to people who are learning as a second language. Not all the time. A lot of times you could. But for example, somebody asked me, when do you use A or N? When do you use the? And when do you not use anything? I couldn't answer that question. Let me ask the internet, right? So, and I'll show you another example when we come back from our break. When you learn a language from birth, it's just different. And that's not to say it's hard. It's not harder now. It's just different. That's all. You got to learn the reason why. But once you start getting these reasons why, then it starts to make sense. But it won't make sense if you don't have conversations about it with each other and with other people who study this language. We've got to continue to engage with each other. And when you go to your elders and your speakers, don't ask them like, oh, is that the conjugation prefix? Don't ask them stuff like that. Just get them to talk to you. Try and get them to talk to you. And that's when you do your listening and you focus on that whole language stuff. They give you like the really good stuff. This is just the sort of nuts and bolts type of stuff. Okay, let's take 8 minutes. Come back at 5 till, and we'll start back up. Yeah, and I had a question here too, which was, why do you use guash instead of kachu? You can use either one. I think it's been a speaker preference, especially if you're using or. You could say, dasai tuwasaku, kahwe guash chayu. That works for speakers, and so does kachu. Kachu means or. That's kahwe kachu chayu. I think it's a regional thing. The guash part, I'll have to look at what to talk specifically. I don't know if you're asking me why I use it as a person or why anyone might use it. Okay, let's take a break. Let me pause the recording, wherever it is. Let's get back to it, gang. So I had a couple of different, I had a question here, which was kind of fun. And so maybe we'll start with the question. And the question was what I was talking about. So when I say and an and the, like all languages just work different. There's nothing like really magical about it. It's just how languages are. Like in Hawaiian, if you see ka and ke before a lot of words, if you look at Hawaiian language, those are articles. It means like the or a or n, right? An article just means you're kind of specifying what. And in Hawaiian, when you're using nouns, you have to use articles, right? Because if you said, I can't remember how to say rock, but for like if you said, for example, pua is flower. Maybe you said kapua, the flower. But if you said some sentence and you didn't say kapua, everyone would assume you're talking about this person named Pua. So that's how Hawaiian works. English has articles as well. So you could say, hand me the flower, hand me that flower, hand me my flower, right? But you can't really say, hand me rock, right? There's just something missing. And so, but it's interesting, right? When you can and when you can't. And there's a bunch of rules. I'm not going to get it. I don't know those rules. But if we're thinking Tlingit, so the first thing we have is a handling verb, which is a command. So everybody say this is the command on its own. Then afterwards you're going to have a noun. Achjit te.
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 So this is hand me that abstract or compact object, right? So then we know this one, and we say te. Te. So give me a rock would just be achjit te. Achjit te. Te, right? But it's a little weird. It's a little weird. So just a rock, any, like kind of any old rock, whichever rock. This is actually, you would just not have anything in the middle. Right? So te is kind of a weird example because te is kind of awkward. And so you might just say te awe achjit te. You might have to rearrange the words just to say I would like a rock. Any rock. Right? So what the A is doing in English is just saying we're not being specific. So then when you say the rock, we're not talking about like the wrestler, because then we need a different handling verb, and you can pick them up anyways, unless you're like Andre the Giant. But so hand me the rock. Tlingit does not have articles. So it doesn't do the or a or n. It doesn't do that. But what you would use for that is you would say that rock, which would be the same one as this, right? So a better example for this would be, instead of saying the rock, I mean, I don't know why you'd say it, but you could say this one. How would you say that? Yeah, so it would be yeah, right? So the one thing you could do is you could kind of specify where it's at, which is what those are doing. Achjit te, you te. Hand me that rock that's way over there, right? What about give me your rock? Achjit te. It. But then this has to change to te. So then we get a rule, a possession rule, right? So his or her, achjit te. Do te, right? Achjit te. And what comes next? Ach te. All right, so that's kind of how you would take care of that kind of stuff. So you don't really do like, you know, you could say achjit te dak achjit te dak satei. Hand me any old rock. Hand me whichever rock, right? But you don't need to do the article thing. English has specific purposes that it uses articles for, whether you're using specific ones or not, right? So let's think about like how languages work for a second, because I know sometimes we get a little bit.
Did you already do the imperfective and future?
No, we're going to get back to that.
Oh, okay.
So this was just sort of a jumping around kind of thing.
Oh.
So sometimes we talk about a whole bunch of rules, and it gets really it can get really overwhelming sometimes. Every languages have rules, and you just know these rules. And what you're doing is you're trying to learn them so that you can naturalize them within your own consciousness, so you don't have to think about them all the time. But whenever you learn a second language, you have to learn, you got to get the patterns, and it's just a little different. And so, because when you start from zero language in your first language, you just internalize all this stuff, right? So here's an example. And languages a lot of them are about sounds and how the sounds are going to interact with each other. So for example, if we were going to go from 1 cat to 5 of them, how would we say that word in English? We'd say 5. And how would we spell that? And so we would say 5, instead of dog, there's 1 dog, but there's 5 dogs. And how would we spell that?
D-O-G-S.
And then if there was a bus, but then there were 5 buses, and how would we spell that?
B-U-S-S.
B-U-S-S-E-S, right? Or you could, I guess, someone told me, is this true? Could you spell it like that? I don't know. I don't think, maybe. Somebody told me that looks like fuses or something, right? So the first thing we got to say is okay, English is not, there's no phonetic alphabet. But if I were to spell these words like they sound, how would I spell cats?
K?
Well, I guess, yeah, let's say K. A-T-S, right? A little funky. And you were there when I did this the other day, so you can't give an answer. How would I spell dogs? D-O-G-Z, 100% correct, right? Because we don't say, hey, look at those 3 dogs. We don't say that because it sounds weird to us. But we know that, right? Hey, look, now how would we spell this one? If we spelled it exact, just focusing on how it sounds, not on the crazy rules of English writing. Yes, so we don't only need 1 S, right? There's 2 of them. We don't say buses, right? But we don't, we're not focused, right? So the first thing is we learn these rules of spelling. But what's more interesting, not thinking about the spelling, thinking about how you make language. There are rules to why you do this, why there are 3 different sounds to do the same thing. What is the rule? This kind of stuff gets you ready to start thinking about Tlingit and these other, there's going to be a whole bunch of rules when we get into how to possess nouns and show relationships and stuff like that. So this one, you add S to pluralize. Why would it have a Z though instead of an S? So to get us thinking, where are you making the sound in your mouth? It's a good question. That is in the right direction. So we all have a sa right here where our neck meets our chest. You put your fingers there, and we're just going to go back and forth between making an S and a Z. So that nothing changes in our mouth. Nothing changes with the airflow. Only thing that changes is we turn our vocal cords on. Other than that, the S and the Z are the same sound, right? So there's a major hint. What would the answer be on why we use a Z? The answer is this. A G, if we put our hand back there and we're paying attention to what our vocal cords are doing, we go with the K sound, k, k, k. With the G sound, g, g, g. The vocal cords are on with the G sound. So once we put the S on there, the S and the Z are essentially interchangeable. So when the rule is When vocal cords are on, they stay on. When we're talking about adding a suffix, right? So dogs, that's why it's a Z sound. That's all there is to it. Dogs, right? So you just try it. Anything that ends with some sort of voice, we call it a voice consonant. Then you add another voice consonant. The S and the Z, and these show you in English that the S and the Z are the same, kind of close to the same sound, right? They're like cousins or whatever. So why would you have an easy? The reason you would have an EZ is because you can't add the S to the S, right? Hey, look at those 5 bus. Can't do that.
Like BUS apostrophe S.
So you have to add the E, it's just, we call it a peg vowel. You need to throw a vowel in there so that we know that there's 2 sounds, right? So once you go bus is, once you add the E, you have to add, now it has to have the Z at the end, E to the Z, right? So these are things we're going to find. If we found any word in English that ends with some kind of vowel, it's going to get a Z in the end, right? Tree, how many trees? This is just stuff to get you thinking about how languages work. We're gonna keep thinking about it in this mode as we go on and we start to sort of add suffixes to things and think.
I was going down the right rabbit hole.
Okay, here we go. So, everybody repeat after me. Tusha on. Tusha on. Tusha on. Kestush on. Kestush on. Ketugursha on. Ketugursha on. Keshketugursha on. Keshketugursha on. So let's just tell me some things that are different between these 4 ways. There are different verb modes. We're changing the mode of the verb, which means the verb itself changes. Some of the things that change are within the verb. Some of the things that change are around it, usually in front of it. What are some things that you notice that are changing? Yeah, so we have sh on, and then we have sh on, sh on, sh on, and sh on, right? So we see the classifier changes. It can only be li, sh. It can only be plus I if it is, that's the way it is. Otherwise, it'll always be minus I. Only goes plus I to show that it is indeed that way, okay? The plus I shows the verb is in fact that way. That's one of the functions of the classifier as well, to say, is it that way or is it not that way? Did it happen or didn't happen, right? Then we move to the plus I version. So then we get minus I, minus I, minus I. What are some other things that we notice? Yeah, so from Tana, we see, it looks like it's plus I, or plus D, sorry, because if we go back to our classifier sort of chart, it does look like, if we see the L, we see it right here, D plus L. And so, but what, this is kind of a weird thing that happens, is that this is actually shla. But when shla has there's a couple different things that could come right before it that'll cause that A to collapse. And it just becomes, right? What are some other things? Anything that we see on here that we haven't talked about yet? What about this thing? Okay. So wait, what does that thing do? Not, right? So that's something you could put in front of a verb to mean not, right? Hosaku, kesh, hosaku, kech hosaku. I know it, I don't know it, right? Itusha'an, you are kind. Kesh itush'an, you are not kind, right? So there's a big difference once we add that. There's also this K thing, which will pop up in certain verb modes. The reason it's there is because it's this upward verb type of thing, right? So this is, just notice if it's ga, you gotta have K. If it's qa, you gotta have ye whenever you go into the future. This is why you say su ye ik kwasatin. That ye is there because of the conjugation type. So let's look at, so here's what's under the hood. So we've got tusha'an, the 0 for the him or her or it. Tu for inside. She is the classifier. On is pleasant, right? So tusha'an, kesh tush'an. You got kesh. This is the same, but you get this little thing here, which we call the irialis. And the irialis is something that can be put into a verb to say, has not happened, right? So we have the plus I classifier, which means has happened. You get the irialis to show has not happened, right? Doesn't mean it won't, just means that it hasn't. So the irialis pops up in all the negative forms. It will always pop in there. That's why that goes long right there. Tush on. Because there's that negative, that part is in there. Okay? When we go to the future, right here, in between, always in between what we call the thematic prefix and the subject, you're going to get ga, ga in that combination. Doesn't matter what they mean. All that matters is that's how you put it into the future. So the future will always have those 3 components in there. That's why the future forms get pretty long in the prefix. You go from ikhsatin to ikqasatin, right? So here, and then we get more Tlingit math, 0 plus 2 plus ga plus u plus qa plus tha. It gets you itagukhla. So you're going to get a lot of gukhla type of things. And my suggestion is, as you sort of see these future verbs, just take a look at them. Start to think about what's going on. It'll probably be sort of, once we get into next semester and stuff, we'll start breaking these things down so that we'll say, if I give you any verb theme, you should be able to, and that's one of the keys, is to be able to say, okay, here's that verb, okay, I know how to use it. Here's that verb, okay, I know how to use it, right? That way you're just building up, because the goal is that you're using the language a lot. You're trying to say these things. And then as you sort of, you say, oh yeah, well, I was having this conversation with so-and-so, and I realized I didn't know how to say this. So then you look it up or you ask somebody, but then once you've learned how to say it, and you see the sort of record of it, you should be able to adjusting it down, right? Like this is, you could say, K itugukha'an. And that's not a command form, but you could say that to kids or to other folks to say, you're going to be kind. That's just, that's just how it is, right? And you're not going to be kind. And that's kind of a weird example, but that's what's going on under the hood when you're looking at futures, when you're looking at negative forms. There's quite a few other things that go on, but then it sort of gets us to thinking about this. I try to draw lots of pictures and other things just to say, okay, let's try and visualize what's going on. So if we're going kind of left to right in a Tlingit verb, it's like there's little switches that you could turn on. And so if we kind of zoom in here, there's the perfective marker. So you might turn that on to say, okay, it's a perfective verb. That's what we're talking about. If it's a future, you're going to turn on this thing, which is, where is it? Here is this ga modal thing, is what we call it. The irialis will pop on, because if you're talking about a future verb, it has not happened. Even if you say it's going to happen, it has not happened yet. So the irialis has to go in there. The ga and the qa that follows, they don't really mean anything. They're just things to show we're putting it into the future mode. Okay. So let's look at something. Let's just look at, so here's another verb. To be cold. Right? So the theme, all that is showing us here, it's impersonal. So there's no object here. There's no subject here. If you're going to say I'm cold, it's a different verb. If you're going to say, like, I chilled it, like I put it in the freezer, that's a different verb. But for this one, it's just the classifier and the root. It's a zero conjugation. It's a state verb. It's impersonal, which is just reinforcing there's no object, no subject. For something that's inanimate to be cold. Okay. So let's just say these. Sa'at. 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 Kesh us'at. Kesh us'at. Kesh us'at. Kesh us'at. Kesh us'at. Kesh us'at. Ya nas'at. Ya nas'at. Ya nas'at. Ya nas'at. Kesh ya unas'at. 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 Wusi'at. 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 Kesh wus'at. Kesh wus'at. Kesh wus'at. Kesh wus'at. Kesh wus'at. Kesh wus'at. Kukas'at. 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 Kesh kukas'at. Kesh kukas'at. Kesh kukas'at. Kesh kukas'at. Kesh kukas'at. Kesh kukas'at. So what type of thing might we be talking about? That's cold, or that got cold, or that will get cold? With this verb. Can't be a person. Glee, yeah, it could be meat, right? Like the meat is cold, it got cold. It could be your food. Huh. Wait, pizza. Maybe that's not bad. Maybe you like cold pizza, right? It couldn't be a living thing. It's not the weather, but we'll see that there's related verbs to these. Okay. So here's the stuff that's in there, right? So we have there's this thing that we just encountered here called the progressive. Like it's getting cold. It's in that process right now. So we're going to get the ya marker, which means along, and then we're going to get this na in there, right? And so let's just, we'll go through these real fast, and then we'll come back to these. So here's another one, stinky, right? In Tlingit, this doesn't always mean like smells bad. It could just mean like, yeah, right? Like seal oil would be in this category. It doesn't mean it stinks, and so it doesn't have really the negative, although if you said to someone, ishichan, that really would mean like, boy, you just have this, you just really, that's hard to not be a negative thing, right? It usually means you are stinky. But it's not always it just means it's pungent, yeah, it's strong, right? Shichan. 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 Kesh ushchan. Kesh ushchan. Kesh ushchan. Kainaschan. 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 Wushichan. 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 Kesh wushchan. Kesh wushchan. Kesh wushchan. Kegushichan. Keguchachan. Keguchachan. Kesh keguchachan. Kesh keguchachan. Kesh keguchachan. Okay, no more stinkiness. So let's get back to the weather. I know that there's a lot that we just sort of looked at there. So let's just practice some things, and we're not going to really go crazy on the verbs. We're just going to say them and start thinking about kind of how they change. We did these ones the other day, so we're going to do them kind of fast. Wasakuati.
Wasakuati.
Kuwake.
Kuwake.
Audigon.
Audigon.
Kushagoose.
Kushagoose.
Kuwata.
Kuwata.
Kusiat.
Kusiat.
Kunach.
Kunach.
Kudach.
Kudach.
Kutch.
Kudach.
Glade dog wusatan.
Glade dog wusatan.
Siu dog wusatan.
Siu dog wusatan.
Kadats dog wusatan.
Kadats dog wusatan.
Kakshahin dog wusatan.
Kakshahin dog wusatan.
Kasechja dog wusatan.
Kasechja dog wusatan.
Kudegwats.
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 Ayauditi.
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 Ayakawadan.
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 So as you go through these, you'll see that they've been kind of blown up for you underneath. So then you can see, oh, that's the ya classifier. That's a zero group. It's plus I. It means it has happened. There's a perfective marker there, right? So these are some things we can start to look at as we practice these things more. We just start making notes. We just pay attention to it. Your brain will do a lot of that work to connect these things as we keep looking at them. Kesh kushke. Kesh kushke. Khat yawasik. Khat yawasik. Khat with the tuck. Khat with the tuck. Ishan. Yidat. Yidat. Yayaki. Yayaki. Tatke. Tatke. Ka. Ka. S. Okay, so here's some weather patterns. So you could say it's like this today. It was like this yesterday. It was like this yesterday and today too. Like if it's, so one of them change in this sort of pattern. Siu da busatan tatke kayaya kitsu. And then you can say siu da busatan if you wanted to. Right, so that would be it was raining yesterday and it's raining today. Right. So now all of these ones we'll look at now. We're adding that perfective marker. And so this is all going into, these were ones where we could say tatke for yesterday. So this is all weather yesterday, a few days ago, a while back. At some point we'll take a look at how to do things like 5 days ago, 5 days from now, stuff like that. Okay, so we see it gets a little bit longer here instead of kuwati or kuyati. We're going to get wasakuwati.
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 So then we look at this, right? Kuwake.
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 So we got to make sure that that's staying long, because kuwake is right now. Kuwake would mean a while ago, right? Who's the goose?
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 So this one, we get the long form of the vowel because it absorbs that ya classifier. It runs into it a little bit. But this one, what happens is because the classifier has a consonant, it gets a little bit of a different shape. It's one of the big questions we'll end up asking ourselves is there a consonant in the classifier? Because that's going to affect the shape of things. What-ah. What-ah. Kusiat. Kusiat. Kudikwats. Kudikwats. Keshkushke. Keshkushke. Our dog. Our dog. Our dog. And so that verb means the rain or the precipitation has stopped. Okay. Questions?
I have to take off, but tomorrow, on campus from noon to 1, we're having Tlingit lunch, and we're going to be going over weather.
Okay.
We're in the process of trying to set something up like this, so if you guys wanted to chime in online.
Awesome.
We're not that far yet, but that's where we want to go with it.
Okay.
So we'll be having Tlingit lunch down in the NRSC from noon to 1, and we'll be talking about the weather.
Okay. Ms. Cheesh. Any other thoughts or questions? Not related to language at all. Did anyone happen to notice a blue wool jacket after class last Thursday? I can check the cabinets, but I'm not sure where stuff goes as far as like lost and found here. Probably the library, maybe. On the hook, well, hopefully it's around. Okay. I'll see you guys in a couple days. Can't happen. Cheese. Oh, okay. Thursday. Yes, you guys can just watch the online video.